Duke, you suck.
You shut your mouth!
Welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. And now, Duke Durango.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. I'm here with the big nasty Tom O'Connor. We're here to talk mixed martial arts, training, wrestling, striking, and his upcoming fight here, May 6th in Calgary.
May 6th, Unified 44, in Calgary.
Yes. We've actually been I had to hit record real quick because we're having a really interesting conversation about training methods and how hard to train and overtraining and listening. I was just about to get into, we all say we got to listen to our body. But the male ego is a horrible thing to waste. So your body will start to ache. Your body starts to ache from overtraining, but you're like, no, I'm okay. I can power through.
Keep going. You're burning it at both ends.
Yeah. So it's that's the one thing. I mean, as you mentioned, Tom, upcoming here, May 6th, Unified 44. You've got a fight coming up. How do you avoid overtraining the way we were just talking about? How do you, obviously you're in full camp now. You're 10 days out?
Oh yeah. 10 days out. Yeah. 10 days. Yeah. That's a huge one. Right. And it's like, I find it's funny because it depends on the place you are at. Like when I'm in fight camp, I'm much more aware of those things because I'm like, okay, I have an event, just all those little details matter. And what you don't like, you got to keep track of it. The more you keep track of, the more success you're going to have. So I try and get pretty dialed in with that, but that's been a mistake I've made tons of times in the past too. And I'm sure I'll continue to make at times of just not the right training at the right time, letting the ego get the better and be like, oh no, I'll do 4 sessions straight. And the last session, like we were just saying before we hit record, is like, oh yeah, you train a bunch. Is like, and then the last few sessions or the last session or last hour, like, how good is it even? Techniques gone to garbage. Like what are you're not absorbing any information. The reps are crap. Like your chance of injury goes up. So like training the right way, like we were saying, equipment, all those things. When I'm in fight camp, I'm a lot more aware. And like, especially now as I level up and I'm fighting more competitively and a higher level and like Unified being such a big organization, things like that. As I level up, you realize the inches add up to the mile. And, at the high level, it's a game of inches. So that all matters, and so I'm getting better, but still so much to learn with it. Cause I catch myself all the time, like doing these certain sessions that, I could have been smarter about that session or training partners and picking your training partners. And like, when you're not in a fight, then you can get away with that to some degree of like the ego taking, full send. I'll just do whatever. I don't need the hand wraps. But when I'm in fight camp, like we were saying with hand wraps, like I'll do a week and I'll be like, I used to never use them. I was like, tough. It'll make me tougher hitting the bag without them. I'll be like, yeah, that's fine. Oh, all good. And then by Friday, I'm like, Brad, I don't think I could spar, my hands are, and then it's like, I'll just use them certain sessions. Sometimes I like to hit the bag. I'll train without any so that, okay, like you were saying, you need sometimes that you need to know you're throwing proper technique. So, and you can test yourself that way, but avoid repetitive stress and hopefully the ego you can keep out of your way for at least avoiding that crazy stress of just repetitive use over and over.
And this is going to sound weird, but going naked, you develop feel, right?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those, this is going to sound ridiculous, but when my golf swing goes to dog shit, what I do is I go to the driving range and flip flops. Cause then you have to maintain balance. A shoe can't keep your grip for you. You have to be really cautious and kind of take it easy. So it's like you say, it's nice to train without wraps because I think it does build some toughness. You know what I mean? Like I think it does.
Yeah. And then like the mind, feeling it a bit. It's like with for kicking, like shin conditioning and stuff. Yeah. Is like if you're kicking the bag with shin pads, you're kicking your partners all the time with shin pads. Well, you never know that feeling. You feel it. It's like, whoa, and even
my mouth just watered thinking about getting one of those shins.
Like, hard low kick like that, or like checking. Like we drill with shin pads so that we don't have bumps and bruises, so you can train day in, day out. So it's important to use the protective equipment. But also, you go into a fight, your first one, and you check a kick. Someone checks your kick. You're like, whoa, that's not what this felt like with the, it's a big eye opener. So you don't want to rely on the equipment, but it's smart to use it to manage. I think it's exactly like you said. If you can battle the ego, use the equipment, what it's necessary for, and be smart about when you use it, but then still once in a while feel, okay, hey, this is just me hitting the bag, or, this shin kicks.
Well, I always use the phrase that, cause I'm a big dum-dum, but I always just use the phrase, like, sometimes you got to eat the shit. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you got to feel the pain, like, taste the pain, embrace the grind. These are all things. I should make these t-shirts,
Yeah, you could have a ton of them, 100%.
Excuse me.
They're good ones too. Right?
Yeah. These are my old man wisdoms now, right? Like, just taste the pain, because it's
Tweets,
always going to hurt.
boom.
Yeah. Well, you hear these guys like, oh, they come out of a fight, and I don't want to minimize, because I've never been in the cage fight. So please, I don't want to come across the wrong way here, man.
Oh, no.
But you hear these guys come out of the cage and like, oh, I had this sore, I had that sore, my hand was damaged or whatever. And it's just like, I don't want to minimize your injury, man, but who goes into a cage fight 100%?
100%, right? And just like any of those sports is like that. There's exactly that. You got to eat the shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's comes with the territory. There's that element. And it's like, so I hate that too. And it's excuses on just the action. Is like, dude, you knew what you signed up for, right? It's like, you do it, eat the shit, take it. And it's part of the process. Like, especially when you're going to like a competitive, like for wrestling, like the body is going to get beat up, and you have to be able to manage that. That's part of your job in that career.
For sure. And going back to our previous point, listening to your body, managing the stress, which again, at a young age, man, when I was like 19 years old, when I was wrestling real hard, there was no way, man. Like, there was no days off. Like, you just trained and trained and trained. And if, you'd go into the weight room, and I was never very strong. And I figured out later in life, like, I never had anything in the weight room because I just wrestled so much. Yeah. Right. So I'm still a pussy, but I guess I shouldn't blame that. But
certain lifts and stuff you just never did. You never would do them.
Yeah. Well, if you came to me and said, hey, man, go bench press a bunch of weight, I can't. But if you say, hey, man, stick this breaking bar through a tree ball and carry that around, I can do that. Right. Like, I have this weird.
It's just a real world strength. Yeah. Which is what wrestling develops. You know what I mean? Like, wrestling is real. You're carrying a person, you're moving them, trying to, you're moving in dynamic ways. There's not much better training than that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah. I don't know, man. My body never
manage stress though. Yeah. Manage stress. Right.
Yeah. Well, and it grinds you up. That's the other thing about overtraining is, because you're always injured, the one thing you need for recovery is rest. And that's the one thing that almost always goes out the window. And
strength too, right? Like, you don't get stronger without that. And now it's so cool too, because now there's such a good spread and wealth of information, as you can find the information everywhere, and it's constantly being added on, and our ideas are being shared. And so now you know that, okay, proper amount of rest. But the ego is the problem. It's the same thing with the overtraining. Same thing with training without the equipment. It's like, oh yeah, I'll take a rest day, and then I still go wrestle. And you don't, in fight camp, it's all magnified, because I'm like, okay, I can't have a rest day. I got this fight coming up, like go. And then out of nowhere, I'm like, look back at the last 3 days, and I'm like, oh, that was 3 days. My sessions they were kind of dog shit, just because I didn't have I didn't recover. Right. There was no point where I actually got back to 100 and then could send it again. So, and I think that's kind of an inevitable problem that you run into, is managing that. But the more you can be aware of it, the better.
One of the things, and I want to make it very clear that using performance enhancing drugs is cheating when it's against the rules. I want to make that very, very clear. Yeah. But I've always thought the way that mixed martial artists have to train, they should be giving, and I don't know that much about those drugs, so I'm going to be cautious here, but there's got to be some sort of leeway, because it is like, it's really easy for, like, boxing's really hard. Unfortunately, all of the rules are based on boxing. There was never a thought that someone was going to go to boxing practice in the morning, go to work, maybe do cardio at lunchtime at work, and then go after work so they could do wrestling or jujitsu.
It's a grind.
People don't understand like how hard it is when you're not making the big money to stay in shape and stay on top of shit. And how
that's a solid point too. Just the cost of it, right? Is 100%. That is one of the trickiest parts, which as people get beat up and that's sometimes I think one of the motivations that people go to something like, PDs or some way to cheat, feel stronger. And then the same thing, the ego, anything I can get a little advantage of just by doing this rather than putting in the extra work, stretching, like we're saying, holding yourself to that higher standard, which
or
set
realistic goals.
Exactly.
Like TJ Dillashaw, I think, is a really good example of a guy that, and I don't want to go hard on the paint because everyone's already taken their shots at TJ Dillashaw, but there's a guy that was, got busted doping, came clean and it just admitted like the only way he was going to be able to get to the weight he needed to was by using drugs. His body felt like shit. He knew he was in trouble. So he did he cut the corner he felt he had to cut to get what he's doing, instead of saying, what, this is an unrealistic goal. I'm going to give somebody else this opportunity and I'll fight at the next level. But
come back to the next day
again, I'm going to sit here right here, right now and tell you, I don't know if I would have done what I just told you he should have done.
Yeah, and that's
right when you're looking at that opportunity,
as a human being, is like we're all humans and we all make these mistakes and decisions.
100%.
And it's easy to say, hey, hold yourself to a higher standard, but it's hard to do in action. Well, it's hard to actually
I have the
sit here and
perspective of 49-year-old man, not a 25-year-old at the top of his game.
And just like winning title, exactly too, is like, and it's such a moment by moment thing, and that's why I think holding yourself to realistic goals, but going back to the drawing board, constantly working on that goal setting, and it goes the same thing we're talking about with like just overtraining and training smart is like before we hit record, we talked about Tom Brady as an example. Is like, at that point, being able to do something at that high a level for that long, it takes a crazy amount of discipline, effort, and like cost, not just costing money. I mean, he's an example of money really helping that recovery system, of course, for sure. But obviously is a huge advantage, but not even just money, just the cost in time, family, all like, you're that's a thing that comes with being an athlete. And
well, the thing is, when you look at Tom Brady too, like I actually just watched a documentary about the 6 quarterbacks that got drafted before Tom Brady.
Yeah.
In his draft year. And they showed pictures of him, man. He seriously was a broom handle. His body was so bad. And it wasn't necessarily that he was out of shape. He just didn't look in shape. You know what I mean?
And he didn't have any like specific great attratudes that were like, people weren't super excited. Oh, this guy's arm, nothing like that.
No, man, nobody was really talking about him. But do you think if everyone would have said, okay, Tom Brady, do your work in the weight room, get bigger, get stronger, blah, 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 would it have affected his football playing? Would he have had the longevity? Because whether people want to realize it or not, that time in the weight room, lifting heavy, getting stronger, that's wear and tear on your body.
And that like with me working at Hard Training, I got to be with Trevor Hardy, like I said, and like he's just super knowledgeable and all that, and constantly improving that too, is like has that growth mindset of learning and constantly improving. But from a fighter perspective, he's been through it. He knows what I'm going through in that sense. And like, it's a real big advantage, having him in my corner and mentoring me. But he talks about that in the weight room with the athletes all the time, is like, that's why we program the workouts a certain way. Cause you can't just go in there, and again, wealth of knowledge, being able to see knowledge from all over the world. We get to share knowledge with technology these days, such an advantage.
The wisdom of experience, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's like, you just go in and do clean every day. Well, repetitive stress on the body, it'll beat you down. But lifting smart, and same thing is like, you can't just be only lifting, but definitely the strength of it, lifting, and the advantages it has is you got to do it in some way. But being smart about it it's not always, again, easier said than done at times.
For sure. And that's the thing is, when, to your point, when you're in that weight room, it's specific training. You're not like, okay, man, I'm going to do this 1 rep thing and, max out my strength today. Not because I don't want your ego to be involved. And that's something maybe you do, if you don't have a fight coming up for 6 months and you want to fuck around in the weight room, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But you're during camp, you're doing some strength and conditioning. You don't want to be doing that 1 rep shit. Cause if you tear something doing that, like,
it's just too high risk. Yeah. And so like what we do in the weight room for my camp is, we go into a strength power phase at about 8 weeks out. If I have the time to do that, I'm trying to do that. But again, fighting is so tricky because it's not like other sports where it's in season, off season, in season, off season.
Yeah.
Something can be happening at any time and you get
You
a
got to
short
stay
notice.
ready
So
year round.
you got to stay ready. And so immediately, as soon as there's a fight, those lifts, those, heavy 1 rep max, 3 rep max, they start to go out the window.
Yeah.
And you start doing everything starts becoming about skill training. How am I going to be improving on the mats? How am I going to be improving in the cage? And then the lifting is supplemental to make sure that my body's staying in shape. When I don't have a fight, it's about getting stronger and faster and more powerful. But otherwise it's about maintenance and making sure, like you're saying, and this goes back to that diligent, like easier said than done. Actually putting it into practice is harder, like it's when you have a coach or something yelling at you, it makes it a little easier. When you're on your own, it's tricky, but it's like putting in the right lifts at the right time.
Right? Like
when
I was never a big, strong guy. So when I would watch guys lift weights, and I got a buddy who says, he doesn't lift heavy anymore. And one day I'm at the gym and he says, "Hey, can you come spot me on the bench?" And I walk over, he's got 385 on the bench and he reps it like 5-6 times. Right. And I was like, "Hey man, I thought you didn't lift heavy anymore." He's like, "I used to that with 405. And I was like, "What?"
Crazy, right?
Yeah. And I'm just like, but I can watch that all day long.
100%.
Right. Like I see a guy like that working out. I'm just like, I don't even want to work out. I just want to watch this freak go.
Yeah. But too, on the other end too, is like wherever you're at, that does feel good lifting. So you're at that moment where you're sweating because it's hard to lift and you still can lift it, set it down and be controlled. But like you said, like when you don't have a fight or you don't have a big event, just going around messing in the gym too. Sometimes all of that's so fun, being active and pushing the body. And it's like wrestling is one of the best examples of that. I think is like this fun way to like wrestling. Some of the wrestling practices I've been, and I didn't wrestle when I was younger as a kid. Right. I just got into all of the MMA all at once. But some of the wrestling practices my wrestling coaches would run, dude, they're so much fun. You do like things like wheelbarrow, like the one where you got the waist ride and they jump and flip side to side type thing like that. You kind of crazy drills like that. But it's so like, how much does a person weigh? Well, you're throwing around someone 150 pounds, this crazy movement is like, that stuff's so fun to train and feeling what the body can do.
Yeah. Or going over the wall and doing squats with a guy on your shoulders. You know what I mean? Like that's, seeing how many you can do, like people, and I understand it's not for everybody, but there's something in that, like, who can do the most, who can go the hardest, who's squatting the deepest. And those are all bragger rights. Well, be like, well, I did 12, you only did 10.
I love that.
I'm squatting deeper than you. You know what I mean?
I love that because it's like we're in sport. We're wrestling is like that competitive edge comes in sport, and it's the same thing we tell the kids at the gym. Like, say a hockey player or a football player is like when you get on the ice, or when you get on the football pitch, or for me when I get in on the mats and I'm wrestling. Yeah. Oh, the competition is healthy. It should be. No, I can be better. I'm going to get deeper in the squat. I'm going to improve. Everything's going to be. I'm going to go faster than you. I'm going to stick handle, score the goals. That competition's awesome. In the weight room, it's like competing against yourself. Like you said, you go to see your friend. He's doing 385. Well, you're not going to go do that because you're going to get hurt. But you go to whatever your max is.
Yeah, when I jack it up to 135, let me tell you, I'm working hard.
Yeah, feels good though. It does feel good. Yeah. Right? Good lift. Well,
there's something about working hard. Like
that's so true.
I'm definitely weird for sure, but I don't mind pain. Like some people are like, "Oh, I hate this." I hate
wrestler.
I don't mind it. Like I don't. Like a broken finger never heals. A sprained fingers never heal because I'm constantly wiggling shit around. Like I don't mind that kind of pain, and that's where I got taste the pain from.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because it makes my mouth water.
Yeah, you get excited a little bit. Like, oh yeah.
But
you can tell that you're a wrestler for sure.
Well, it comes from competition, right? It does,
You don't, and it goes with that. It goes with the hard work because when you're working hard and pushing, like we were saying, manage your repetitive stress. Yeah, well, as much as you can. But if you're wrestling, you're still got to put reps in. There's that balance. So it's like when you're grinding, you're working hard, you're beat up. There's something about that's kind of makes you feel alive too. Yeah. If I just lived in a bubble, there's
taste,
nothing
death,
worse.
Live life, right?
100%.
You know what? I just had a thought. Actually, we were talking about before we went on the air here. Tom and I were talking about cauliflower ears and how I said I never wanted them. But you know what? I think my sprained joints, those are like my cauliflower ears.
You can brag about those, yeah.
Oh, the fact that people can hear me walk upstairs in their home. they're like, is that your knees? Like, yeah, man.
You're like, yes, it is.
Yes, it is. And you kind of like, I have a friend, she's like, oh, I feel bad for you. I was like, never feel bad for me. The juice is worth a squeeze, and I would do every bit of it all over again.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
It's like, I have these for a reason, and the experience that got me these pains, these aches, I wouldn't trade those, you know. Of course, you want to feel better, like all these things, of course, but if it came to shove, you take the experience every time again.
100%. When I wouldn't, and I bet, you wouldn't trade anything you've done in MMA for anything, right?
No.
Or anything you did in rugby, right? Those are, do you remember the math tests you took at school? No, but you remember the rugby games you played at school.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it comes down to too, like I think you said, the passion you have for it. Like when it's something you love wrestling. It's not for everybody. Well, those people that they have to find their passion in something else. Is it like whether that is soccer or chess? It could be anything. But when you get into it, like those are what keep you alive. Is like being obsessed with something, being passionate about something.
That hunger, man.
Yeah, hunger.
You remember when Forrest Griffin fought Anderson Silva?
Yeah, crazy.
Excuse me, he got knocked out. It was fairly embarrassing. That was a crazy knockout. Yeah,
it was a tough knockout.
Yeah, he cried after, and a lot of people went pretty hard on him for that. And I remember he handled it so well. And I could be full of shit, but I believe what I remember him saying to people is, you know what? I hope someday in your life you have something worth crying about. And I thought that was so
I love that. Yeah.
Right.
He has always been someone that I just have respected so much, the way he handles himself, because he kind of comes off so goofy and fun and just having a time. So when serious moments happen, people are hard criticism on him, but he's very genuine and real. Like that's such a good thing is, oh, I wish you have something to cry about, or cry for something that you care about deeply enough that you'll cry over it.
Well, and sometimes I look at people in their life and they'll, I've had people like, oh, geez, you invested all that time in wrestling and, you didn't make a lot of money at it. And I'm just like, yeah, but what do you have in your life that you are that passionate about? Do you devoted, unfortunately sacrificed a lot of years, your time with my wife, you know what I mean? Being away and doing my thing, and God bless her, gave me the room to do that. But, with you at the gym, you're sacrificing relationships, you're sacrificing time with the family. And that's what the one thing that people think, oh, they train hard, but the real sacrifice comes from the time.
The training hard is part of the love too, right? It's like
you like that part.
That's fun. That's passion. It's hard. You got the bumps and bruises, all of that worth it for the passion. The hard part, the part that it makes it the most difficult is 100% that extra cost that people don't see. The time away from family, all of that, the time away from the girlfriend, it supports. And of course, when you have an incredible support system, it helps make it all easier, but nothing makes that easier because you can't, there's no trade-off. That's the cost. That's part of it.
Well, have you seen this in MMA? This is something I've seen in wrestling actually multiple times. Excuse me, wrestler or fighter A gets a girlfriend, or even, in a female situation, girl gets a boyfriend, and the person they're with is enamored with the fact that they're a fighter or a wrestler or a boxer or whatever. They love that.
They have no clue what they're walking into.
Yeah. And then 6 months later, they realize like they're part of that person's life, but that person's life is whatever that combat sport is, because that's what you need to do to be successful at it. And then very quickly that person fades out of the.
Yeah, you see it. And like, I think just with relationships in general, that initial that gets so tricky, but people don't understand the cost that athletes put in for that. And like every life has a cost, a pro and a con list, or every career, has a pro and a con list. And I don't think that people who aren't involved in it, or aren't that deeply involved in a sport like that, where that they got to be there all the time, understand that.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why you see so many people outside of sports successful after, is that realization of that's what it takes, right? Because same thing is, look, when entrepreneur, someone starts a business, is to be successful, it's going to cost time and relationships, and you don't get to go out with your friends on this time because that you don't get those things. But successful business owners, they learn that. The family learns that cost. Like a kid in school for being a doctor, like, oh my, the amount of time and cost, and paying that cost, holy jeez, right? It's like all that comes in. But the athlete one, yeah, it's funny because you don't understand it unless you've lived it, unless you've experienced it. And it's a lot of hours, it's a
Well,
lot of grind.
and the thing is, man, like I can sit here and ask you, and truth is, I don't think I've ever asked you this. I can sit here, and I probably won't, but I can sit here and ask you, hey, man, what's it like to fight in a cage? But you and I both know there's no possible way you could articulate that to me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if you've never done it, and that's what
You,
I say
you
about
don't
pro
know
wrestling
unless
or
you know,
anything,
right?
right? Like if you've
Yeah.
never hit your thumb with a hammer, I can't explain to you how
I
that
can't explain it.
feels.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. And I'm telling you, don't go try it. But
Yeah, but and that's the same.
yeah,
People are like, "Oh, what's it like to do it?" There's no words. I know
yeah.
I could never. And so
I
I'm
can
like, "Oh,
describe
hey,
how I feel, but you can't possibly know unless you know.
yeah." Like I could say, "Hey, man, I understand what you feel in there." No,
Yeah.
there's not a chance
Yeah.
I understand what you feel when that
We're
worm.
probably one of the closest though, because you know what I mean. The comparison of those things. There's the yeah, exactly like that. There's the comparisons. There's close,
Yeah,
but I can't
there's
describe it
nothing.
to you.
No,
There's not.
man.
I
The,
can't.
the
Yeah.
intensity of what you do, right? Like the intensity of being a mixed martial arts fighter is, to me, it's the greatest. This is going to sound really, really, really like toxic masculinity, but to me, there's no greater test of like manhood combat than mixed martial arts. Right. When you
Yeah.
look at
I
the
mean,
totality of all the sports, all the shit that's out there, and I mean, guys like you and I have seen, we've watched the Sambo, we've watched the Taekwondo tournaments, we've watched
yeah,
the karate tournaments, even the full contact karate's bullshit. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
we've watched all this
100%.
stuff, and when you watch it in its totality,
It's well,
MMA
and
is unique.
that's what I think is so exciting about MMA and why the sport is the best sport in the world and so
Yeah.
popular is that it is everything. You could be a sambo fighter, well, prove yourself in MMA. You can be a jiu-jitsu, and now it's becoming hybrid MMA fighters who are these machines of these mixes, right?
Oh,
And I was talking about it the other day, and about jack of all trades, master of none, you know, and that could be a tricky thing as you're going
yeah.
through your martial arts career, where you know you're trying to do all of this in MMA, but you don't actually master any. But now it's actually there was becoming masters of the mixed game, you know,
Yeah.
and it's getting pretty wild.
Well, and I think credit for that goes to a lot of coaches like your coach, that have been there and done it and seen it and have taken what they learned and built on that and evolved the sport and taught it to you. And now you're going to take what he does and build on and evolve. Right. Like
Yeah,
that's, I actually have
100%.
goosebumps talking about
And
that.
I think too, like that about it. I don't know if it's as much toxic masculinity because it's same thing for those girls, same weight class, you know, matched up.
Yeah.
You want months to prepare for this person. It's 1v, it's me versus you. You know, there's not many settings in today's modern world where you get that, where it's still wrestling, jiu-jitsu competitions, all of it, but they can always be, hey, well, I could have just struck with you. I would have beat you. You know, oh, I could have just, you're a striker. You beat me in kickboxing. I could have took you down.
Yeah.
Well, you could decide that by fighting MMA now, right?
Yeah.
And
That's,
so,
you know, and that to me is one of the coolest things. Like one of the truth is one of the things that actually concerns me, and tell me how you feel about it. I get concerned when I see guys like Francis and Usman wanting to cross over and fight these world champion boxers.
yeah, especially in all boxing rules and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I do not
it's
want to see
interesting.
Tyson Fury
You know what
hit.
it is? It's money fights. It's, you know, it's just like,
And,
because
man,
of
and I'm okay with that. But Jesus, like wait till like, so I'm
yeah,
somebody
Tyson Fury. Did you see that knockout the other day? Crazy, eh?
Can you imagine now do that with like a 4-ounce glove on?
Oh my goodness.
Do you know what I mean? Like you're gonna look like a fucking Pez dispenser.
Yeah, they were talking about that too, about doing boxing rules, but with 4-ounce gloves.
That
And,
scares
man,
me.
That's nuts. That gets wild. One does these Muay Thai with MMA gloves. Have you seen some of those?
Yeah, man.
YouTube Rod Tang. Oh my, it's insane. That Demetrius Rod Tang fight was nuts.
Like these, and it just keeps, you know, there's got to be like one of the things I've been going on about, and I do not want to enter you into any of my bullshit here. So please be careful how you answer this.
Yeah.
But fighter pay is a big issue for me, not at the indie, what I'll
Mhm.
call the independent level, but definitely the UFC level. So
Yeah.
Francis now, you know, it's not uncommon that his salary, he got pay-per-view points, but his salary for the last fight was $600,000. He got nothing to win, 600K, which I think is grossly
Straight across.
underpaid.
Yeah.
But if he now holds out for his year, goes and fights Tyson Fury and gets knocked out, where does his price go?
Yeah, and it shouldn't drop, right? It shouldn't be affected at all. But because and that's, I think too, is like one of the issues with it being these money fights. I don't know where I stand on them, because I think I think it's cool for the athletes to be able to cross over and have these opportunities like that. And if it's just, it's just the crossover, just that. But when it starts coming into things like that, oh, you lost a bit of your star value, you lost a bit of your star power. Well, now we have the right to pay you less because it's under our, you're under our viewership, so you bring less in.
Well,
whatever it is
tarnished, right?
Yeah, which it shouldn't be that. It should be it's a combat sports athlete. That's added experience too. Fighting Tyson Fury, that's look at that guy, dude. Who wants to fight that guy?
And also the eyes it brings to your sport,
beast,
right? Like I think,
it seems like when the Conor McGregor and Mayweather when that was started, there's so much of this boxing versus the UFC, boxing versus MMA. When I was like, does it have to be that at all? Like, it's boxing rules. Let's just see how Conor can box. Let the guy box. And I don't think it has to tarnish MMA.
No, I think he represented himself and MMA very well. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think, to be dead honest with you, I think that there's a lot of that where Floyd Mayweather was simply not doing a lot and allowing McGregor to go to work. And that's okay though. Like, I mean, they made $100 million each. They were putting their time in. That's
crazy, with boxing, that amount. That's insane.
Don't understand.
Just in this conversation, you saying Francis 600 and then 100 mil, like, insane.
Yeah, like more than 10 times.
How? Right? How can right? Like, how can you make that much? And then how is the UFC willing to just pay the man? I would think, right?
Well, the thing is, the way I look at it is, the people that own the UFC paid what, $4.4 billion for that. That wasn't cash, right? They financed that. So somebody's looking for their money. You might want to put on a couple of these big money boxing fights, put a buck in the till, and continue on with your day. That's sort of how I see it. Right. If the guy wants to do it now, do I want to see Usman get knocked the fuck out by Canelo Alvarez? I do not. But at the same time, like you say, just take the fight, because it's still just fighting. It shouldn't hurt your reputation, right? Like, George Masvidal lost to Colby Covington. George Masvidal lost to Usman twice. His stock hasn't gone down with 3 straight losses.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like, I think the people that compete in it know, that that's part of the game. And like, even the losses, how much you learn from the losses, which is my last experience, is like, I got so much information from my last loss about me, just me as a fighter in person. Okay, where can I improve? And that's going to be with every fight. Last time we talked about Arturo Gatti and Ward. Yeah. Those fights, win or loss, it didn't matter. Those fights made them the people they are. Yeah. Like that, they're just legendary like that. And so I think having, opportunity to just go and compete, and, just for the love of fighting and for the love of the sport, is like, how exciting would that be if they both want that? And it shouldn't tarnish their value or their image, I don't think, at all. But also on the other side, it's a business. And some people are like, even Jorge Masvidal, those guys, Colby Covington, they're so good at that business side of putting on the persona, putting on the show, saying the right things, being aware of all that. They're must-watch TV because of that.
Yeah.
It's like Diaz is.
One of the things I think back to, and this is a pro wrestling story for you. Do you know who Mark Henry is?
Familiar, but no.
So he went to the Olympics as a power lifter. He can literally roll up a frying pan. Like, he's a
ridiculous trainer.
He's a freak.
He
He wanted to take time off from the WWE, and they actually gave him like they put him on TV and gave him an extra thick one, and he still did it. Like, they tried to rib him.
Crushes this,
and he still did it. He's insanely strong. So he wanted to take time off from WWE and go compete in the world's strongest man competition. And when he wanted to do that, he got the blessing of Vince McMahon. But Vince told him before he went, hey, listen, you understand that there's a job for the world's strongest man. not the second world's strongest man.
Oh, right. Because the same thing that
I'm
image.
marketing you as the world's strongest man. If you go lose, what do I do?
How do I market you? Yeah. For
So
sure. And
but I don't think that applies to fighting because that's marketing a gimmick, right?
Yeah, exactly. Versus this is real fighting, and you know, it's like real combat. And it's interesting too because it almost is like you see that with sometimes UFC or these big fighters who create this brand for themselves. Conor McGregor is the perfect example. Is like he's got that walk, he's got the talk, you know what I mean? And he's just the way he took over the UFC and media the way he did. You brand that, but he almost is. We talked about it a little bit last time. For me, it was almost like his skills as a martial artist. Well, he was so connected to the character that he was playing that once he hit this certain point, it was hard to grow out of that and just continue being a better fighter. He started, you know, like his identity was affected by it because you watch. He used to do that spinning, Masvidal as well, right? Like he used to scrap. And now he's how do I think about the fight? And he's lost a bit of that scrappiness.
Wow. How about this? You know, what is he like 35 fucking fights into his career?
Yeah, crazy.
And he says, I'm going to start wrestling more.
Yeah.
What?
Why?
Right? Like you haven't, how have you gone this far and just decided you need to wrestle more?
Yeah.
Come on.
And especially now, like we were talking about now the MMA world is hybrids. It's these animals, you know.
You know what, man? There was a time, Tom, when I thought about getting into MMA, and it was when Ken Shamrock crossed over from UFC into WWE. Right. And I kind of went to my wife and said, you know what, I could do this. And the only reason I thought I could do it is because the caliber, first and foremost, the caliber of fighter was nowhere near what it is today. As a half decent wrestler, I'm not saying I could have been a UFC champion, but I could have made a name for myself. And then crossed over back into pro wrestling was my plan. My wife kind of hard nosed that and
vetoed it.
And I'm okay with that.
It turned out okay.
Yeah, I think I did okay. But at the same time, I mean, it's I would never even think if I was just a pure wrestler now, I would never think I could just go compete at this. Right? You'd be a fool to think that way.
Well, it's like the same thing we talk about the cost and how much are you willing to put in is like, well, if you're successful somewhere else and you've learned how to be successful, the work it takes, the cost of being away from family, these things, you've learned how to be great somewhere. You can be great somewhere else, but you know, same thing, time, all these things that work against you. Like Jorge Masvidal, like wrestling now, how much are you going to be putting into your day of that? You know, like we're talking about scheduling training is like, well, how much of your time goes to that? A full camp just to wrestling to catch up? Because if you're fighting someone like Usman, well, you're never going to catch up to that knowledge base. No. But maybe you can do just enough to make sure you can do your game again. And some of it seems like a bit of the identity is gone. Like McGregor, he used to attack so well with the lead and just set up that left hand, and then all of a sudden, fights later, it's gone. You know?
Well, he's just waiting for it now. Because he caught coming in with a counter punch, right? Mm-hmm. So now he's just waiting for you to come in so he can drop that left hand bomb. And it's like, well, if I don't rush in,
then come to me, right? Yeah. So I think that it's cool too, just seeing the evolution of fighters is like the connection of the certain points of your career. Like for him, what a wild ride that would be. Same thing we were talking about is like, it's easy to say to this, but then you actually look at it and it's like, I don't know if I would have done first of all, I know I couldn't do what he's done. The personality he has, like it's a special kind of charisma that guy brings to fighting. Right.
Well, in wrestling, we call the push, like it's called a push when they start giving a guy, the championships and stuff. Yeah. And they strapped a rocket to Conor McGregor. You know what I mean? Like, they knew they had lightning in a bottle.
And smart move too. Like it paid off big time, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, the stars align, because you think he went from welfare to the biggest, to the one of the most highest paid athletes on the planet in what, 5-6 years?
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's insane.
Like, people say like, what's not overnight success? That kind of is at what you guys do.
Yeah. 100%. And at that level, like above any MMA fighter ever, all time.
Like
ever,
no one's even close.
We're talking about like, what was it? Forbes wealthiest man or something, like Forbes wealthiest person or something. And like that's around all athletes, basketball, football, these high paid sports. He's right at the top. From that to there in that sort of span, I can't imagine, dude. I can't imagine. I know I would have done a lot more. Like just the psychology on it. It's impressive. So I like giving him credit there because it's pretty damn impressive what he's done. But talking about just the fighting skill, the mentality behind your fights and stuff. It is interesting to see how over a career, sometimes a fighter will lose their identity of their fighting style.
Yeah.
Well,
they try to, there's a point where, and let's go back to Masvidal's wrestling. Okay. So let's say he decides now he's going to spend the next 6 months wrestling. Yeah. Well, you can't tell me you're going to do that without your striking diminishing. Right. Yeah, so now you're going to be able to defend takedowns like a mother, but now your timing is going to be off on your striking. Cause even if you're still doing it, you're not still doing it. Right.
Yeah. And you're not, and it stays, but it's not the same. Cause everything has a cost. And when you're learning techniques is like, well, you're shooting doubles, like your body positioning has to be different versus standing tall. So all those things. Yeah. It's interesting. And I talk about this all the time, learning jujitsu. And when I'm teaching a jujitsu class is like, the ebbs and flows of learning something like that skill wise, where, okay, I'm learning triangle, boom. And eventually people are defending the triangle. So I'm going from the triangle to the armbar, boom, boom, boom. But at some point when I want to start being like, okay, I'm going to the back and I have this technique I love. I start doing that one. It's going to take a cost to do that. I start doing that. There's thousands of triangle sets, thousands of back takes, all these thousands of these techniques. But if you're doing one, you take away from that style, that energy to do the other.
It's always the way. Well, I've seen it mostly, and this is going to sound funny too, but I've seen it mostly in golf. I've really watched a lot of. I started watching.
Very technical.
I started playing late, so I watched a lot of golf to try and learn. Like I started playing golf in like 2009.
Okay. So, do you play quite a bit?
I used to play like 40, 50 rounds a year, but I am in road construction now. So I play last year I played 13.
Less. Yeah.
I was okay. I could shoot like low 80s. I could break 80 now and then, but
way better than me.
Well, I'm a
golfer. I'm a fun golfer. Golfer.
Well, I put a lot of time in early on. Now I just go out and have fun. But what I would find is the guys would get to be the number one player in the world. And it happened multiple times. It happened to a Euro called Luke Donald, another Irish guy named Patrick Harrington. Luke Donald became the number one player in the world. He's a slight guy. I don't know if he's 170 pounds. And all of a sudden he decides he needs more distance off the tee. And he hasn't done shit since. Patrick Harrington wins weird. Yeah. Patty Harrington wins 3 majors in a calendar year. In my opinion, probably just keep doing what you're doing. I think you found it, kid. Yeah. And he goes and starts
make a change up, make an adjustment. Yeah.
And he hasn't done shit since because he started working on his swing. He wanted.
And it's hard. It is hard too because you're constantly trying to you have to be improving. But you're not improving.
There's a point of diminishing return.
Yeah, right? and the cost. You got to be aware. What am I doing? What's the cost? Yeah.
Well, and I think at that point when you find the perfect thing, you just practice it.
Reps.
Right? There's a guy, Byron Nelson, a famous golfer. Somebody was on a driving range. I'm going to say like Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer was on a driving range and they could hear a pinging sound and couldn't understand what it was. And it was Byron Nelson out hitting golf balls in the rain and hitting them into a flagpole.
Just over and over.
Yeah, into a flagpole.
That's crazy. Yeah.
He wasn't changing his swing. He was ingraining what worked.
Yeah. And that's so important is that those reps of that, you know what I mean? It's that same thing like Tom Brady, that just literally one position, that throw, that mechanic over and over and over and over. It's like, the Bruce Lee 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then, so once you let's say you've worked on a particular single leg for 10,000 hours. Do you think at 10,001, you should be like, you know what? I could fucking
I'll ditch this single leg, right? That's
right. Like, and that to me is the mentality. You've gotten 10,000 hours in doing something a certain way. That's not the time to start changing.
Keep doing it. Yeah. Ride or die on that shield. Yeah, 100%.
But maybe that's why I'm not on the tour and I'm sitting in my basement podcasting too.
Well, put in 10,000 hours on the podcast, we'll be rolling.
Dead by
it's I think it's funny too because it's like in a competitive space that it can be super difficult, but also in a non-competitive space it doesn't matter as much. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm going to change my golf swing today. Oh no, I fucked up big time.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to go back to what was working because otherwise the boys are going to give me a hard time this next round. I
for sure.
shit, right? And in a competitive space, it gets tricky because you're looking under a microscope and you're trying to make the adjustments.
Well, there's always a search for perfection.
You have to be pushing yourself. You have to be growing, and you have to be making adjustments. But which ones?
Okay, so then wouldn't you say if you've cleaned out the division, you're the world champion, you've cleaned out the division, and are we not at, is Adesanya not like lapping the division? I heard the phrase someone used the other day.
Yeah.
He's beat everybody twice.
Example.
You know, I'm not saying don't improve. I'm not saying don't learn new techniques, but I am saying probably don't mess with too much.
Yeah. Keep doing. Yeah. Improve your skills. And two, like, I think you can be improving the skill sets and things, but don't change the identity of what you want to do.
Yeah, subtle things, right? Maybe turn the hand over a little more when you're punching.
Yes, train a different type of footwork, those types of things, because you could that's a conscious decision in that moment at that high level. Like he's doing a back shuffle step to set up a lead roundhouse. Okay, that's working well. Well, now maybe I'll do an angle off this time and I can catch someone, because you're thinking and computing things at such a high level that you can make those decisions. But don't change the practice. Don't change. I don't want to go for a single leg. I want to catch the right hand. I want to hit the right hand, or right. It's like the essence of what you're doing. I'm going to be a striker. Yeah. I'm going to make sure they can't get to my legs. Like knock them out before they get to my feet. And if they get to my feet, I defend it this way, get back out. You know what I mean? The identity of what you do shouldn't be changed, but the skill levels should be evolved. Maybe that's the best way to put it, I'd say.
Well, and the thing, just keep sharpening.
Yeah, sharpening iron.
Like one thing our coach told us when we were kids is when you watch the guys that win the Olympics, of course they do everything well, right? They can do everything. But when you watch them at the Olympics, they don't do like 50 moves. They win the Olympics with they do 3 or 4 things way better really than everybody else.
That jack of all trades, master of none type thing, right? It's like they do what they do very well. And when you're trying to master everything, well, other things are too weak. They're not at the high level, the Olympic level, all the inches out up to the mile. It's a game of inches. You can't miss by even a sliver, and you mess up, and it's elimination. Do you know what I mean? It's like you mess up, it's over. It's done.
You're one and done, right?
Yeah. So it's too bad. The cost, the risk reward is so high that it has to be perfect. So instead, do a few things really well. Yeah. I like to, in sports, you see that across all. Do you know what I mean? It's like watching the Olympics, you see the cyclists, and one way they'll be talking, the commentators will be, oh, this guy, guy A, he is great at these hills. He masters hills, but in the long flat, he's really bad. He's really poor. He loses a lot of time in the long flat. And it's like, you just kind of have to accept that that's your identity as a racer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to improve in the hills, and I'm going to improve in the long flat. But I know I'm a hill guy. So when I'm racing on the day in the Olympics, I make sure I kill it on the hills, get the advantage, and the cost on the flat I take.
Well, know where your bread and butter are.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Know your wheelhouse. Okay, I'm going to shift a little bit now. Let's
cool.
Enough about me. Let's talk about you for a minute. May 6th, man. Johnny Nguyen.
Yeah, John Nguyen. Yeah, big fight. Sweet.
I'm excited for you, and I'm really Calgary. Pissed off. Our mutual friend there, Bob Rama, sends me the link that you're fighting on the card, and the first thing I remind him of, we're out of town.
Yeah, gone. Oh, of course.
Yeah, him and I are actually out of town together.
Luckily, I'm signed for a few fights. I'm signed with multiple fights with Unified. So
anyway, who cares about that?
I'll be.
Let's get back to you, man.
You'll get to the next one.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna get to all of them. You're a fighter. Good. I'm gonna, within, I'll give you a 3-hour radius.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds
anything good. Within 3 hours, I'm there to support you, brother.
Awesome. I love it.
So, how much do you know about John Nguyen? How much?
Yeah, a friend and teammate of mine fought him a while ago, Lucas Neufeld. So he fought him in Hard Knocks.
That was a good fight, man.
It was years ago. That was a good
fight. I watched that fight this afternoon, to be honest with you.
Yeah, crazy, right? Crazy
Yeah,
fight.
that was a
And
good
war
fight. Yeah.
and good matchup too. Like,
Can I ask you who won?
stylistically.
Because they cut that off. I just saw the fight.
Lucas won by decision.
He did, eh?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, the
Just,
fifth
I think
round.
it was very close. It was a very
Yeah.
close decision, I
Yeah.
believe.
The last
Um,
minute of the fifth round was it?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it was 5 rounds too, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and he got
Um,
Lucas controlled him on the ground for the last minute, well, almost full minute of the fifth round.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what won it. It was the ground control and the wrestling.
Yeah.
And so too, and now that was years ago. And obviously I know John has been improving in a lot of areas and really elevating. And I hope he has. I hope he's his best version, because that's why I do this. I want to fight the very best. And,
Right.
you know, so every time I step in there, I'm trying to make sure I'm a better version of myself. But I think stylistically, it's going to be a wicked fan fight too, because you know what he wants to do, keep me out. I think for the most part, he's going to want to stand and strike and be slick and fast and use his speed attributes, versus I want to make it dirty and gritty and rough and just an absolute, just like I'm not a war. I want to make it a drowning, you know,
Right. Put your forehead in his chest and go to work.
100% pressure. And so stylistically, it's kind of who employs their game better and who leads the dance. And that's what I plan to do, is just put the pressure on them. But for a fan friendly fight, it's nuts. And that whole event is crazy, bro.
Yeah. Like I'm excited. So the one thing I told Bob right away when I looked at the thing, I was like, "Okay, it's on UFC. If it's on Fight Pass." I got that. We're
pull it
covered.
up quick. Yeah, we can watch it.
I said we might have to watch it on my phone, but we're covered.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely not one you want to miss, right?
Yeah, well, and now let me ask you that. Is this your first time fighting on on a platform that large?
Yeah, the coverage for sure. Because first time fighting on UFC Fight Pass, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, okay. I know XFC was Deportes, and they had a lot of viewership around the world, but not that huge.
Well, that was on Fight App, which is a fairly big thing too.
Yeah, it's still big, but not. But I think this is the biggest show, and it's Unified is like Canada's proving ground. It's Canada's biggest MMA show there is. So that alone is the exposure. It's the biggest organization I fought for, and so leveling up wise, that's great too, right? Yeah. There's so many things I'm excited about being local, like in Calgary. I'm not the hometown kid, but in a way, right? It's like we're both Southern Alberta. Yeah, it's Berta boys. A crazy energy in there, electric fight. Yeah, Berta boys going at it.
Well, and that's a nice venue, man. That's
sick in there. Hey,
people think that's weird, but as somebody that's wrestled in a lot of buildings, that's a nice venue. Like that's a cool place.
It's so underrated. You know, we almost should talk about that more too. Sometimes a different time about venues you've been to, because that's a cool thing, right? Is like the certain venues, and every venue has a different energy. It's that's the part of the performer side. And like I love that too, is I'm a first competitor martial artist. Like I want to compete and do what I do very well. But on the other part of that is performing. And I love, me, my style. I like to be performing. I like to be
that's why I think this fight,
I like to be fighting in front of people.
You guys are going to stand and bang. Like, and not insane. That I think you're just going to stand in the middle of the ring and pound each other into the ground.
It's going to be a fight.
Yeah. You guys are going to throw down for sure. Well, what weight are you fighting at? Cause
it's at 145.
Oh, so you're fighting, going down 45.
Yeah.
Okay. How's the cut?
It's good. I'm saying the thing is I haven't been down to 45 for a while, so it's going down good. I still feel big. I still feel strong, but I still feel big. So these last couple of weeks will tell. I won't know until I'm on it, You
never do, man.
Right now, exactly. And that's just the way cutting goes. But I feel good. I feel healthy. I'm still eating good, but weight is constantly going down, and I'm getting there strong, still able to train hard. So that's that balance is, weight cutting wise, you never want to weight cut to take away from your performance. It's like, you got to be able to do the weight cut while still maintaining performance. And these last 2 weeks that's the hard part. But it'll be a good experience. Good practice too, is I want to fight down there more often. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, and I think, if I can be Joe Analytical, that's never been there, if I can be, the nobody watches me, Ariel Hawani. Man, that guy's got a lot of opinions for somebody that's never actually been punched in the face.
He's the opinion master of MMA, right?
Yeah. I think there's a point of diminishing returns when you're cutting down, but I also think for somebody like yourself, because you're 5'8", so when you get into 55, those guys are long, man.
5'6", yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so 5'6", Yeah,
But
so those
that
guys
is
are
always
so
the case, is
long.
they're
And
always
like,
long. Yeah.
people don't realize how tall those guys are at 55 and 65.
And that's what I was saying about my last fight is I didn't feel like I felt strong. Like, and DeMonte was big and strong as well, but I didn't feel a strength disadvantage, but I noticed the length, like very, very noticeably how long he was. Which is, again, I want to fight 145 and 55 because they both present different challenges. You know what I mean? The 55, super long, crazy.
55
And
is the blood weight, man.
Oh, dude, it's maniacs up there too. Like,
Yeah.
and there's some guys, like if I'm cutting to 145, what some people cut to 155, you know what I mean? There's some big boys there. So
well, I wrestled the
I like the
nationals one
advantages.
year. I wrestled nationals one year at 72 kilos. So it's at like 157, something like that.
Yeah, 56, 58
156,
or something like that.
157. And the
What is
guy
that range? Like it goes like 4 kg or something between.
Yeah,
Because
went
range,
68, 70. Yeah, went 65, 68, 72.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the guy that won 72 cut from 88.
Yeah, that's wild.
You know what I mean?
Right?
Like,
And the rest
when
of
I
the
realized,
cuts, like
I'm not as hungry as that guy.
Yeah, that guy wants that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've never had the shit kicked out of me like that in my life, to be honest with you.
It's a maniac. And there's maniacs that are willing to cut that. It's like crazy, right? That's
I'll
why
never,
I
out
do-
of respect, I still remember that guy's name. His name was Aaron Pomeroy. I will never forget the beating that guy handed me. It's when I realized, okay, I am not at that level.
There's levels to the game. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that guy taught me, like, I'm not a man.
which is part of why you love this game, why you love fighting, because there, you need those. That's the best part, is the constant check of the challenge. Can I overcome this challenge? And I'm going to do everything I can, but there's lessons, there's levels to it.
Well, and you're in your local room, and I mean, I won't lie to you, I wasn't even the best guy in my local room, right, within my weight class. So I don't want to paint myself out. But when you go to that level and you're in your local, when you're in your high school and you're one of the better guys in your weight, and then you go to the Calgary team and you're okay, and then you go to the nationals and you're a bum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when you realize, like, oh shit.
It's so good though too. That's one of my favorite things. Is like
that's when you learn about yourself, man.
Train. That's when you learn about yourself. Is like,
yeah.
Holy crap! I'm at the bottom of the sharks pool now, and I, you know what I mean. Like, I'm in trouble here, and how am I actually going to handle this? Right?
Well, and how am I going to
win, lose all this?
Well, from your point, when you lost, your first thought is, okay, well, how am I going to get better? When you win everything, you just keep doing what you're doing, right? Which to your point earlier, it's important to maybe try to keep getting better, but at the same time, so you always have that goal.
Same thing you do it. You're doing it good. It's like the dangerous thing too is like, oh, you're winning in your local room. Oh, the ego. I'm great. I'm awesome. Like, oh no, I'm untouchable. You go to that next level, and you're like, you need that ego check too. You need that wake up call of, hey, whoa, there is more levels to this. And for fighting is like getting those training partners that have been there, that are higher level, that can put me in bad positions and push me. It's mandatory. You have to have it. You know what I mean? You have to get those training partners.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, well, and that's, you want, like, I won't mention his name because I love the guy, but he was a good training partner when you wanted to, like, go full out all the time for all day.
Yeah.
Like, pack a lunch, this guy will go with you. But you couldn't, like, warm up with him because he would injure you warming up, because
you get hurt.
And so that's the thing for you guys. It must be hard to find, good training partners that are there to improve, but also there for you, really there for you to improve.
Yeah, you got to find a room and just get a group of it's tricky. You get a group of the right mindset of people, right? And so now I'm in a really good place where it's built up over the years. I met, in MMA, it's a small world, and there's so many awesome people involved in it that some of the people I met and trained with, they're constantly willing to work with me and make sure I'm improving. The fighters that are still fighting, I'm going to make sure I help them. Like Cody Jerome, kickboxer. He's, one of the best kickboxers in Canada right now. And I think the world, like, he's going to take over right away here. But same thing is, he's like,
about to go.
It's about to blow up for sure. But like, an example is like, anytime, if the fighters, if they're helping me, I'm helping them, and you having the same mindset to make sure we're always getting better is so important. And then even just the training partners.
Yeah, man. Well, it really is a brother and a sisterhood, right? Like, people don't understand while the cool thing about MMA or, wrestling for that matter, is it's a singular sport. And people they only see you out there on your own when the lights are on, winning, losing on your own. They don't see that it takes a room of 30 people to get you there.
Yeah, it takes that whole team, right? And it's such a cool dynamic of that sport, is that's one thing I love about it. It's just me in there. You know what I mean? Lock the cage door. Now it's all on me. But it isn't all. It's the team. The team is what got you there.
Yeah.
It's so important because that's how I grew up, is playing team sports. Because so I always had that. But then when, like I told you last time, when I started MMA and kickboxing, I was playing rugby. It was just fun, beer league, and I had a great time, great people, and it was a blast. But I just lost that competitive edge, the hunger, and so I started kickboxing, and that fight got signed for that first fight, and then boom, from there I was addicted, obsessed, because I felt that is like, whoa, it's all on me here. I can't blame Bob for being drunk. I can't blame this is me and this person. Let's find out who's better.
In the most in the most harsh environment almost possible. And it's, nothing but respect. Nothing but respect. I'm gonna let you get out of here, man. I've been burning your ears off for an hour.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome. It's always great catching up.
Well,
I love the Arturo Gotti and Ward trilogy. You told me to make sure I watch it. Dove into it, crazy.
You did. Well, I'm glad you watched it, man, because I'm not kidding you. It's, for me, that's what got, like, I hear people talk shit about boxing, and that trilogy for me is like, if you don't think that's the best of almost any sport, then you just hate,
insane.
Do you like sports, or do you hate that? Like, I don't.
Yeah, exactly. There's no in between. You either like sports and appreciate that, or you don't.
Yeah. So
like you.
Yeah. All right. What's your come on, Jordan, you think. What's your social media?
Yeah, Instagram Tom Big Nasty, Twitter Tom Big Nasty, and then Tom Big Nasty O'Connor Facebook page.
All right, give my man a follow. Buy your tickets May 6th out at the Suchi.
May 6th, Unified 44.
Get it done, baby.
Go. Yeah,
Duke,
sick.
you suck.